We already talked about these are game changers. These are cultural changes. These are what are making it more difficult for you to coach at all levels. We already talked about coach's salary, one and done, digital technology. I'm going to talk more about that as we move along. I think digital technology has completely changed the way we live and operate on this globe. It's just revolutionized the way we interact, the way we store knowledge, the way we transfer knowledge. Conference realignments, the emergence of mid-majors. Teams like Butler, VCU, and Gonzaga have gotten a lot of coaches fired. Because the stakeholders are saying to the president and the AD, God damn, Prez, you tell me we ain't got a better school than Gonzaga? You telling me we ain't better than Butler? VCU, hell, I thought that was a hospital. How can these guys be better than us? So that only makes the expectations worse. Now the mid-majors are in trouble. The boy down there at VCU, he got to the Final Four. Butler got to the Final Four. Now all the mid-major people think they should be in the Final Four. Some of them people are going to get fired. They're going to get fired. They're going to say, hell, you know, the boy at VCU, he hadn't been coaching that long. He went in there and whipped everybody's ass. They don't know. You got to educate the uneducated. They don't know. They operate on assumptions. As we move along and we look at the digital technology, I wrote down here, digital technology has altered our entire culture. What is going to be your strategic plan to deal with digital technology? We're going to talk more about team leaders. But I think one of the big mistakes that we make in coaching is not teaching a kid how to become a leader. We tell him he should be a leader, but we don't teach him how to be a leader. What do you think, it's just going to happen by osmosis? Very few coaches prepare for withdrawal. And as a result, they leave the game bitter. I think you got to prepare for withdrawal. Hey, let me tell you something. The day's going to come when they're going to close the curtain. The play's over. Disneyland is closed. You got to go home. As the guy on ESPN says, you don't have to go home, but you got to get out of here. So, do you have a plan for withdrawal? A friend of mine I talked to many years ago at the Final Four, a hell of a coach. And I said to him, I said, Bill, what are you going to do when you get out of coaching? Because he was unhappy. He says, George, I don't know anything else to do. Coaching's my whole life. I don't believe that. I believe there's a vast reservoir of talent in you that you can do a lot of things. I'm not a smart guy. I was a C student at Villanova. But at 65 years old, I managed a $180 million department for Nike. Now, goddamn it, if a C student can do it, you can do it. If a raggedy-ass kid out of Washington, D.C., walking around in short pants and no shoes and dirty legs can do it, you can do it. Don't sell yourself short. Prepare for withdrawal. There's 5 or 6 things in life that you can excel at. I've always said if coaches put as much time into a corporation as they did into coaching, they'd make millions. And in sports marketing at Nike, We try to hire ex-coaches because we think they come in ready to go. Kevin used to work, I hired Kevin. Coaches are great in corporations. They know how to lead. They know they're going to win sometimes. They know they're going to lose sometimes. They know how to deal with frustration. They know how to motivate people. They know how to get the best out of them. Man, there's a lot of corporations that would use you. Don't ever say there's nothing else that you can do, because you can. You know, I wrote this down. Never forget that it's always helpful to have a collection of friends in high places. Write that down. Never forget the importance of having a collection of friends in high places. An old guy told me one time, he said, George, son, he said, George, son, he says, always plant a lot of flowers on the way up, because you're going to have to pick them on the way down. Always plant a lot of flowers on the way up, because you're going to have to pick them on the way down. If you think you're going to stay on top forever, you are a naive fool. At some point in everybody's life, God closes the curtains. He says, the play's over. Everybody's got to go home. And then what? And then what? Always plant a lot of flowers on the way up, because you're going to have to pick them on the way down. And don't think you're not going to come down, brother. Something else pertaining to this chart that I wrote down, and I want to read it. Instead of trying to get a player to be something that he is not, how about helping him become more comfortable with who he really is? Instead of trying to get a player to be something that he is not, how about helping him become comfortable with who he really is? You are really in search of the key that will unlock his potential. You are really in search of the key that will unlock his potential. Not spending quality time with players away from the court. It's no different than being at Nike. You've got to take the employee and spend some quality time with them. You got to get in their head and find out what they're thinking. You got to ask smart questions if you want to get the right answers. You've got to ask smart questions. I'm working on a presentation now for Nike called The Art of the Question. It's all about the value of asking questions. I conduct a lot of meetings at Nike that I script out. And I don't do anything but ask questions, the whole meeting. I have 3 yellow pages of questions, and when the employee comes in, all I do is ask questions and write notes. My talk-to-listen ratio, the talk is about 10% and the listen's about 90%. I'm on a mission to acquire information. I want to know what's inside that employee's head. You want to know what's inside that player's head. Don't meet in the office. Meet away from the court. Get in a relaxed manner. When you sit behind the desk, it signals authority. Shouldn't be anything between you and the player. Walk across campus. Walk down to the deli and get an iced tea and talk in a relaxed manner. Get the player relaxed. And just ask questions. Ask questions. The problem with coaches is this. Here's what happens. Yeah, come in. Hey, what's up, son? Hey, coach, I want to talk to you. First test of listening. Did you hear what the player said? He said, hey, coach, I want to talk to you. So you know what he's really saying? Coach, I want to do the talking and you do the listening. So many times a player comes to you and he says, coach, I want to talk to you. And we flip the switch and we do all the talking. And he walks out, he hasn't accomplished anything, and you haven't accomplished anything but blow off a lot of BS. If the player says, coach, I want to talk to you, shut up. Listen, ask questions, be certain you understand what he's saying. Listen for what he's not saying. And also help him say the things that he wants to say, but he doesn't know how to say it. Those are the three key things. Listen. Listen for what he doesn't say, and help him say the things that he doesn't know how to say. The person who talks the most gets the least amount of information. Your job as a coach is to get inside that player's head and find out what resides there. The other thing that I see today in coaching, and I wrote this down, and Doc talked a little bit about it. Too often coaches are willing to settle for compliance instead of acquiring a player's sincere buy-in. Let's go back and think about what I said. Too often coaches are willing to settle for compliance. The player caves in and he does what you want. But that doesn't mean he bought in. He just wants you off his ass. If I were coaching now and I came back into coaching, there'd be three things that I would do. Number one, I would listen to the voice of the athlete. Every single day that I've been at Nike, they drum that into your mind. Listen to the voice of the athlete. At Nike, they say, if you listen to the voice of the athlete, they will lead you to success. It's a way of life at Nike. Listen to the athlete. When I went to dinner the other night with Dirk, all I did was ask Dirk questions and listen. When you were 1 for 12, what was your mindset? Guys came up to me at halftime, coach, and they were all telling me, Dirk, don't get down, keep shooting. Hell, we're up one, and you only made one basket. They're going to start dropping for you. He said, and just like they said, in the fourth quarter, they start dropping. Sometimes someone exterior of you has to have confidence in you for you to have confidence in yourself. Someone exterior of you has to have confidence in you for you to have confidence in yourself. Dirk's teammates believed in him when Dirk was starting not to believe in himself in that game. They said, we believe. If you don't believe, hang with us, baby. Everything's going to be all right. The second thing that I would do is free up the players' minds. I would free up their minds. Sometimes we have the players' minds in a vice. They're afraid to think. They're afraid to speak. All they know is compliance. I've got to be in compliance. They don't say that to themselves, but it's manifested in their actions. You've got to free up their minds. I was talking with Doc at lunch the other morning about this, or the other day. If we build fences around players, they're never going to be there who they can be. They're never going to reach their potential because we build fences around them. At some point, we got to open the door to the cage and let the bird fly out, and let's see where he goes. Free up the players' minds. The next thing, I learned this with Harold Miner. You got to let players, your good players, take bad shots if you want them to make the good shots. If they got to look over at the bench, I told Harold Miner one time, I called timeout. I told the other 4 guys to go on back out on the floor. I told Harold, hey son, let me tell you something. You look over at the bench at me one more time when you shoot, you're coming out. Turn it loose. You'll know if I'm unhappy because the buzzer will ring. Turn it loose, free his mind up. I called him in one day in preseason practice and set him down and said, Harold, I got a confession to make. I recruited a superstar and I'm reducing you down into an average player. All you're doing is trying to satisfy me. I knew damn well he was a way better player than that. I got the staff together. I said, hey, look, if we're not careful, we're going to coach him down to an average player. And we got a superstar. I said, let's call him in, give him 3 or 4 things to focus on, and we'll live with all the other mistakes. And that was what we did. The bottom line was this: National Freshman Player of the Year, Player of the Year, Freshman of the Year in the Pac-10, leading scorer in the Pac-10 as a freshman. Why? Because we freed up his mind. We freed up his mind. I guarantee every one of y'all got somebody on your team right now that's better than you think he is. But you got to open the cage door and let them fly. You want to find out how good your subs are? Take one of them and play them with 4 starters. God damn, you look at them on the second team, they're going to look bad. Take one of them and put them up there in the first team. You want to find out how good they are. All of a sudden, they don't look that bad. All of a sudden, they play better. All right. I learned this at Nike. Somewhere up there, it talks about FaceTime and mind space. Golly, boy, I wish I'd have thought about that when I was coaching. There's not 2 more important things, ingredients for your future success or success now, than FaceTime and mind space. It's so important to get your face in front of the right people at the right time. When I was doing the CBS studio show with Pat O'Brien, we're flying back to LA on the plane, and Pat says to me in our conversation, he took me under his wing and mentored me. He said, hey, George, lesson number 1, the only thing that counts in television is FaceTime. The only thing that counts in television is FaceTime. How much time is your face on the tube? How much time is your face in front of the AD? How much time is your face in front of the president? Most of y'all never hung out with the president. Hell, they're just like everybody else. They just got a few more degrees. How much FaceTime you have with your boss? And mind space. Everybody's trying to go to the person above you with a request. He's only got so much mind space, and you got to fight for mind space. You've got to learn to understand the value of mind space. Let's take it down a few notches to players. You don't think FaceTime is important with players? You don't think getting mind space with that player? You gotta carve out a little cavern in his brain for you. Other people are telling him, You're not getting enough shots. Eric's taking away your game. You ought to be shooting more, man. Eric don't know what he's talking about. Well, damn, Eric's got to get some mind space in there to counter that. Some way there's got to be a balance. The best decisions in life are made from a balanced perspective. The best decisions in life are made from a balanced perspective. If you allow LeBron James's head to be filled with only one perspective, and that perspective is counter to what you want to get done, now the fight is for mind space. Eric's got to carve out a cavern in there for himself. And he's got to get LeBron to a position of neutrality. He's got to get him to have a balanced perspective. The best decisions are made from a balanced perspective. The presidents, the ADs, the GMs, the principals, the presidents. Your destiny resides in their hands and minds. It's an absolute must that you establish a relationship with those superiors above you. Don't build walls around yourself. Don't build walls around yourself. If you're on a college campus, you've got to have a good working relationship with the AD and the president. If you don't, you have no way, you're not going to survive. I thought I was going to coach at Washington State for my entire coaching career. One day the president calls me up. He says, "Hey, George, what are you doing?" I said, "Watching TV." He says, "Hey, take a walk over, come to my house, I want to talk to you." So I got over there and I said, "What's up, Doc?" He said, "You and I have been around here for 11 years. You came in under my watch. You've been supportive of me and I've been supportive of you." He says, "So I want to tell you at the end of the year, I'm stepping down, I'm going to retire." I still feel empty. I still feel like crying right now. I never had a better boss than him. I never had a guy who was more loyal to me than him. So I'm walking back home and I'm thinking, God damn, what am I going to do? It was like I lost my dad. It was like my dad saying, "Son, I got cancer, I'm going to die tomorrow." And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And damn, if a month later, the AD, Sam Jankovic, I run into him at a restaurant in Pullman, and we sit down, and he said, "Sit down and have a drink." He said, I was going to call you later tonight, but now that you're here, I'll tell you." He said, "I'm going to leave. I've been offered the Miami job." I said, God damn, now I'm an orphan. I'm a coaching orphan. The president's gone, the AD's gone, 2 new guys are going to come in, and I know I'm going to get screwed in this deal. Now, I know the president who's retiring says, "George, don't worry about it. I already told Sam to put 6 more years on your contract." But hell, who wants to spend 6 more years in hell? I don't know these guys. They don't have a vested interest in me. They came from somewhere and they got somebody they think is better than me. So if you don't have a good relationship, the minute they start leaving, you better start thinking about leaving. And so I did. I wasn't looking to leave. After they told me that and Iowa called me, I left. And the program has been relatively down ever since then. And I don't say it's because of me, but the president had a sincere commitment to basketball. The AD had a sincere commitment to basketball. Don't go to sleep on me, Eric and Terry, because I know this doesn't directly pertain to you, but indirectly you can turn it around and put an NBA face on it. But I just think you got to have a relationship with your boss. When I got that global director's job at Nike, only me and my laundry man knew how afraid I was. Ah, damn, here I am, 65 years old, and I said to myself, well, George, it finally caught up to your ass. You done bit off more than you can chew this time. So I had to try to figure out how to make it work. One thing I did is I went down to my boss and I scripted out about 15 questions. And I called him up and I said, Adam, can I come over and talk to you? He says, yeah, come on over. So I walked over to the other side of campus and I went in and I said, I got a bunch of questions that I need you to answer for me because I think it'll help me perform better. And the first thing I said to him, I said, hey, Adam, I said, explain to me your management style. When he got over the shock, he did. But if I'm going to work for this man, I got to understand what is his management style. Because I've got to adjust to his management style. I asked him, how do you like to be communicated to? What don't you like? You know what he said when I asked him what would really piss him off? He says, George, I don't like surprises. I said, neither do I. So we won't have any problem. I won't give you any surprise and you don't give me any. And we'll live happily ever after. And that. I said to him, I said, Adam, how am I going to be judged by you? What is success going to look like to you with me? I got to know this. See, you've got to go on an investigative mission to find out how people are evaluating you. You can't assume that you know. And the worst goddamn thing you can do is make the AD feel he's an outsider. Then he's going to deal with you like he's an outsider. Nobody likes to be outside. How am I going to be evaluated? I wrote this down. There's no way you will ever have a trusting relationship with your bosses if there's no meaningful and consistent communication. There's no way you're going to have you're not going to have a meaningful relationship with your wife, your child. If there's no meaningful, consistent communication, you will not have a good relationship with your wife, your child, your players, whoever it happens to be. It's just the way life works. There's got to be communications. I sincerely believe at 75 years old that 75% of all the problems in the world could be solved if we can just get two people to sit down and talk. I don't know if you went to that summit, Jay, that we had in Chicago. When I talked Phil Knight into give me $200,000 to have the first basketball summit in the history of the United States. Brought all the stakeholders in basketball in, NC2A, NBA, AAU, NABC, you name it, they were there. Then we brought in some of the power brokers and influencers in basketball. And we sat around for 2 days and talked about our responsibilities to the game, what's wrong with the game, how can we improve the game. At the first break, I was absolutely floored when one of the guys in the NBA office told me, he says, hey, George, thanks for doing this. This is the first time that the NBA and the NC2A have ever sat across the table from each other and talked. Can you imagine that? Two of the most powerful entities in basketball in America, and they never talk. Well, how the hell are you going to work anything out if you don't talk to each other? You don't trust each other. There's got to be communications.